All right, class.
Yes.
Our big question for this first lesson is, how are life cycles of plants similar? And you all made a prediction for this yesterday. But today we're going to kind of start diving into an experiment to really understand and see how different life cycles of plants are similar. So, you are going to develop and use models. And we're starting with our explore inquiry. And with this one, we're determining, what do seeds need in order to grow? I would like you to pull out your workbook. And we're on page 129. What page?
129.
All right. I'm going to give you 10 seconds of silence to try to get to page 129 in your workbook, gentlemen. 129. Oh, I said 10 seconds of what?
Silence.
Talking.
129.
I don't know where my notebook is. I don't have a notebook. I know, I don't have that. This is it. No, that's a...
On this page, it asks you to make a prediction. I have put a sheet of a dry paper towel. I'm going to shift to my camera here really quick for you to see. I have 2 bags of seeds. One of them, my seeds are just leaned against a dry paper towel. Okay?
Planting beans?
Beans. Yummy.
This is overgrown bean seeds. Oh, yay. What about
So, oh my goodness gracious. Did we blurt?
No.
No.
So this is my bag of beans that
That's funny.
are just in with a dry paper towel. This is what they looked like when I put both of them in yesterday. Now I wanted to make sure that they had time to kind of be starting this project while you guys were gone yesterday. So my second bag, I soaked my paper towel in water and I put 3 beans in this bag.
Whoa.
If you notice, I did this yesterday afternoon at probably like 3 o'clock. They've already grown quite a bit. Okay, these seeds are quite a bit fatter than these seeds right now. I will have these hanging in the window so that you can keep looking at them throughout the days. However, I want you to make a prediction. Which seed do you think will grow? The one that has water, or the one that does not? And I want you to write that prediction on page 129 in your workbook. We do have a science workbook. Maybe check your reading bag and see if you stuck it in there. Which seed will grow? The one that has water, or the one that does not? And you're going to write your prediction on page 129.
Oh, I found it.
Online friends, your prediction is going to go in your slides.
What's that?
Restroom group 2 may wash their hands for lunch.
Let me see that.
So we are going to carry out an investigation. On the next page in your workbook, they have a table, and this is the model that we are going to use to record our data, okay? For seed observations on day 1, which is today, so we're going to actually add in today's date, which is November 19th. What do you notice about the seeds today?
What table?
Who can tell me something that we can observe about the seeds today?
What page is the table?
It's on page 130. It's right there at the top. 130.
I can get to it, Emerson.
What do you notice about the seeds right now, Braylon? Let's jot that down. Seeds with, and here's a shortcut for with, W and a slash. Seeds with water equal And let's just put a little bigger, because they're not a ton bigger. But you can tell they're just a little bit larger than the other ones. So this is on my table on page 130. I'll zoom in a little for you guys to see that. There you go. We are going to be keeping track of these seeds for the next 5 days. Now that's a little bit tricky because obviously that's going to be the weekend also, right? However, this is going to be Friday. Day 2 is going to be Friday. Day 3 will be Saturday and Sunday. That we're not going to be here. So we're going to kind of be able to summarize those two together. But Monday, we should see some differences here. And I'll keep these seeds in the bags in the window for more days than that. So if it changes beyond our 5 days, we'll be able to see that. But I really want you guys to take the time. Scientists always look at things and they observe them and they should analyze what's happening. And so we're just going to be recording our observations in this table model. Capiche?
Papa.
Landon, was there something else you noticed about our seeds?
No, I just had a question. Are
Sure.
we going to keep these?
Yeah.
Will
Yep,
we
we're going to
plant
keep them in here.
I know
Restroom
they
group.
grow like big.
No, like keep them like at your house.
Group 3, wash your hands for lunch, please.
Like keep them at your house.
So, clase.
I have a question.
I do have some reading for you all to do, and there's only 5 minutes before we leave for lunch. And so, in your textbook, please turn to page 54. What page? We're going to read it together. Nope, you're still going to need it, so you can stack them up.
So, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Will we plant the seeds?
Ooh, we're going to have to wait and see.
Hey, there's a snake.
Please follow along with me, friends, as I read. Page 54 starts with needs of plants. So plug in the blanks when I pause. Like all organisms, plants have needs. Plants get everything they need from their environment. Living things that do not get what they need may die. Plants need carbon dioxide, water, light, nutrients, and space to live. How many things do they need?
What about oxygen?
How many things do they need?
5.
Let's read about the first one. And the first thing is carbon dioxide. What is it?
Carbon dioxide.
Plants get a gas called carbon dioxide from their environment. Plants take in the gas through their leaves. They use this gas to make food. Oxygen is another kind of gas. It's made as plants make food. Plants give off the oxygen that they make through their leaves. Animals breathe in this oxygen to stay alive. Plants also need oxygen. So someone asked, what about oxygen? They do, but the carbon dioxide is more important to them. They give us oxygen because they filter that out from the carbon dioxide. Thing numero dos. Based on my bold word heading, what is the second thing they need?
Water.
Water. Like all living things, plants need water. Group 4, you may go wash your hands. They take in water through their roots. Water travels from the roots, up the stem, to the leaves. Plants use water for many life functions. Water helps a plant stand up. It keeps a plant from wilting. And a plant also uses water to make food. However, would you all look at the pictures at the bottom of page 54? This is something that my husband needs to learn. He started trying to water my plants to be helpful, and he's giving them too much. They need water, but who would like to read this caption for me? Landon.
Too much water can be harmful to plants. The plant on the right had too much water.
Good. So when plants are not wet enough, they start to wilt. But if you give them too much water, it's like drowning them. And so they can't hold themselves up. They get so much water that they start just falling over like that too.
They're dying.
So they have to have the right amount of water. Capiche? Okay, so we have been doing our first lesson of this module of the Parents and Offsprings. And so lesson 1 is all about the life cycles of... What are we learning about? So this is going to be on our back wall to remind us that our big question that we're thinking about right now is, how are life cycles of plants similar? And so we started reading about this, and we are going to continue reading more about it today. But starting on page 54 in your textbook, we're going to learn about what plants need, and then we're going to talk about some life cycles of different plants. So what I would like you to do, since we started this together, I would like you to refresh your memory and read pages 54 and 55. And I'm going to give you 5 minutes on the clock to read this. And then we can discuss some of the vocabulary words and what plants need, and we'll pause. And then we're going to do a little bit more reading before we do some questions in our workbook. Capiche? So you're going to read page 54 and 55. What are you going to read?
54.
All right, here you go. All right, quick check here. Who can tell me for number 1, what are the 5 things that plants need
6.
in order to live? We will. 5 things, and so we're going to answer this one together, and we'll list them here. Plants need.
Oh.
What page is it on?
131. What's one thing, Riley? Nutrients. Ellie? Water. I'm just going to separate each of these with a comma because we're going to list all 5 of them. River? Ooh, how did they list that?
It's just light.
Light. So they need nutrients, water, light.
Carbon dioxide.
Uh-oh. Skylar?
Carbon dioxide.
Carbon dioxide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I already have written them down.
Nutrients, water, light, carbon dioxide, and what was the 5th thing that they talked to us about? Bless you, bless you.
I
Get
wrote.
those down.
And
You gotta write this one.
ooh,
She's writing
Keegan,
it.
thank you for using
Get
GTS.
everything down that she's putting. So plants need nutrients.
Nope. That wasn't one of my headings. Look in that textbook. In our text, they gave us 5 different headings that you read about, 5 different things that all plants need to survive. There were 5 different sections and headings. So we can find our answers in the textbook. Nutrients, water, light, carbon dioxide. You want to go again, Keegan? And space.
I have is space like the space in the sky or just space?
So you should have all 5 of these listed in a nice sentence.
Hyperspace.
Uh-oh. Well, let's think about that, Kevin. We just read it, so what type of space was it talking about?
Space around us.
The space around you, right? Like needing some distance. So we're looking to see, everybody's holding you guys accountable. Are you writing a complete sentence with 5 things listed? Nutrients, water, light, carbon dioxide, and space.
What does this mean?
All right.
Visual.
And then the second question is, what role do plants play in creating oxygen that animals need to breathe? Really what they're asking is, how do plants provide oxygen for animals? What happens for them to help out with this? Is Rylan, Skylar, and Keegan my only friends that read this? Man.
I read it twice.
Look me up. Skylar, what do you got?
Like they get like all the stuff that they need, and then they kind of like sweat.
Ooh, yeah, it is kind of like sweat. Do you guys remember from that water cycle video what they call it when plants sweat the water out? Starts with a T.
Transform.
Not transform. Keegan? Transpiration. Let's look at what they said in the textbook about it. When it says in the carbon dioxide section, who sees some evidence in here that tells us how they provide oxygen for animals? Who thinks that they have found the evidence that proves how they help get oxygen for our animals?
Animals breathe
Hadley?
in this oxygen to stay alive.
Ooh, so that tells us yes, animals get the oxygen from the plants. Let's rewind a little
It's
bit.
the first sentence.
Backtrack and find
The first sentence.
how the plants make the oxygen. Emerson?
Plants get a gas called carbon dioxide.
Oh, but this is about oxygen. It says, what role do plants play in creating oxygen that animals need to breathe? We can't just use random sentences. We actually have to think, how can we find the answer to this question by looking for those words in the text? Where does it talk about plants making oxygen? Hadley read a sentence that said, animals breathe in this oxygen to stay alive. And I asked you to rewind a little bit to read more about oxygen. Riley, what do you think? Plants make oxygen through their leaves. What do you guys think? Is that in here?
It's on the
Plants give off the oxygen they make through their leaves. Oh, it goes out through their leaves. How do they make the oxygen? Jade.
They make the oxygen. Is by food.
Okay, so here's what happens. We're going to do some actions here. Check it out. And I want you guys to copycat me.
Okay.
Plants breathe in carbon dioxide.
Plants breathe in carbon dioxide.
And I want you to actually do it. I've got a couple of you doing it, but I want you to do these motions because it'll help you remember. Ready? Plants breathe in carbon dioxide.
Plants breathe in carbon dioxide.
And they turn it into food
It turns into food.
and release the oxygen. We're going to do it again. You ready? Plants breathe in carbon dioxide. They turn it into food and release the oxygen. When I say teach, I want you to tell your neighbor how plants create oxygen for animals, okay? Teach. Online friends, you can do these actions at home too and kind of explain to your parents or just explain it to yourself how plants create oxygen for animals. So now that we've practiced, for number 2, we can ask this again. What role do plants play in creating oxygen that animals need to breathe? Who can explain it to me how this all happens, Miss Ryland?
They need, so to make their oxygen, they need like water.
They breathe in.
carbon
Dioxide,
Carbon dioxide, yes.
and they make it into food, and then they spray it.
They don't spray it, but they
No, breathe.
they release it. Okay, so let's do this. First,
Can I?
plants breathe what?
I just write.
What do my plants breathe in, guys?
Carbon dioxide.
Carbon dioxide. Now I gotta remember if breathe has an E or not at the end. Yep. And I'm gonna make your lives a little easier here. We're just gonna put CO2. That's carbon dioxide. First, plants breathe carbon dioxide. You can tell me my next step. Savannah.
Then they turn it into food.
They turn it into food. And remember, we just talked about this. Into is one word. Can humans turn carbon dioxide into food? No, it's a little bit different. We need our nutrients from other things. Plants get most of their nutrients from that light and their carbon dioxide. We need food, right? It's a little bit different. But we're grateful that plants turn it into food, because my third step, what do they do that's good for us? Olivia. Oh, say that again.
They release it.
What did they release? They release carbon dioxide? Is that what we need? No, they release oxygen. Now their question was, what role do they play in creating oxygen that animals need to breathe? So what would my fourth step be? The plants did all that. What would be the fourth step now? Now that the oxygen has been released. Honey, the best way to do GTA, we're still just sitting, right? Because otherwise it's kind of distracting to our neighbors. Emerson, what would happen next? What do we all do with that?
They breathe in.
Good. Animals
Would we be dead if
Breathe.
Pines wasn't here?
in the oxygen.
Would we be dead if animals weren't here? Yes, we would, because we would be.
If you wouldn't, if not done.
This creates kind of a cycle, the breathing cycle between plants and animals, is that when we breathe in our oxygen, we actually exhale or release that carbon dioxide that plants need. And this cycle starts over. So yes, someone asked, would we die if we didn't have plants? Well, maybe there would be other things that also release oxygen for us. However, plants are very, very good for us. We need that oxygen. Yep.
If we had a mask on, we'd be like
So,
dead.
have this done in 5, 4,
Unless
3,
you were like Dax.
2, and 1. Some of you mentioned trees. That leads us to our next question. You told me that plants need nutrients, water, light, carbon dioxide, and space to grow. Number 3 says, why do you think big trees in a forest grow far apart from each
We
other?
don't.
Those big trees do need to grow far apart. They talked about how grass can grow really close to each other, but big trees are spaced far apart. Why would that be, Landon?
Because if they're squished together, it could fall in a house.
Oh, maybe, but let's think about plant survival. The parts that we've learned about. River?
If the trees were put together, then the roots would touch and then the trees would die.
Perchance, but because why? What do those trees need? They need more...
Light.
Air.
Space.
No, wait, space.
They need more
Space.
space. Larger plants need more...
Space.
What about the desert?
Wouldn't it, if the tree leaves connect together, there would be no light, so it couldn't.
That's true. They need that space so they can get their light, because if they're overlapping, they wouldn't get enough light for their leaves. So just in general, blanket statement,
And
larger plants...
if they were together, the trees under them couldn't.
Exactly. They need more space.
And they're one big. And they're one big space for the larger plants. Or if one of them fell, how would
Okay, so you finished this page. We have a little bit more reading, okay? I would like you to read now page 56 and 57. What page are you reading? This is going to be talking about flowers and cones, because we talked about how plants and animals work together for kind of these life cycles. We want to know a little bit more about the life cycle just of plants. Remember that big question we had is, how are life cycles of plants similar? Not all plants are the same, but they are similar because they're classified as plants, which means that their life cycles are going to have some similar things. These are two different ways that plants can cycle, with flowers and with cones. So you're going to read 56 and 57, third grade. When you're done reading these, you can actually hop to on your workbook page, and this is the part that Ollie projected for you. It's page 133, and you only have to answer questions 6 and 7. So I'll write that here. It's page 133. If you're a fast reader, this is the part that you're going to be answering afterwards. Capiche? All right, have fun reading page 56 and 57. All right, friends. Zero, lollipop. We were reading how it stopped. The first question on page 133 that we were doing, number 6, says, describe the process of pollination. And the best way to do this is to look at the picture on page 56 in your textbook. So let's kind of zoom in on that. It's the life cycle of a cherry tree. Everybody looking at that picture? So in this life cycle of a cherry tree, I think the most logical place to start is where the seed is, right? Who would like to read that step? Brielle. Good. Do I have any scientists that remember what the word germinates means or has figured out what germinate means? Kevin?
It's starting to grow.
Good. It's starting to grow. So when something is germinating, it's starting to take life, it's starting to grow. What's my next step in this life cycle? Rylan?
Bees
Nope. This middle one here. A young.
A young cherry tree grows.
Good. So the seed germinates. The seed starts growing. It turns into a young cherry tree, and that starts growing. After that, what happens next? Emerson.
Bees carry pollen to.
Bees carry what?
Bees carry pollen to in a adult tree seeds form.
Good. So bees gather pollen from all these flowers. They buzz around. They go to the flowers in the tree, and they drop that pollen off. That's when seeds start forming. So this is the start of pollination. Bees bring the pollen to the tree. Which part of the tree do they bring the pollen to?
Fruit, flowers.
The flowers, right? And so that's where the seeds start forming because they sprinkle the pollen in the flowers and they're like, all right, the little seeds, go ahead and grow. And then what happens? Skylar.
The fruit forms around the seeds.
Good. So in a cherry tree, the fruit that forms around the seeds is a cherry, right?
I gotta bring.
Now this is the next step that my group was talking about. It's kind of silly. A lot of the seeds get dispersed because the ripe cherries just fall off the tree.
And
But
then it
anybody
poops
that
it
has
out.
a cherry tree, what else do you know happens with the cherries on a tree? Not all of them fall, right? What happens to some of the other cherries? Gunnar?
They rot.
Well, some of them rot. If they rot, they probably fell off and rotted. So that's the same process. Does anybody have a cherry tree at their house?
I don't, but I know what happened.
Do you pick the cherries?
Yeah, I throw
So some of the cherries
at my
we
brother.
pick and we eat, right?
I don't. I throw them at my brother.
Are we the only ones that eat those cherries?
No. Birds
Uh-huh.
eat them and they
I'm
poop
looking
them
for a
out.
scientist who is reading and understands when the animals eat the cherries, what happens to the seeds that time? Kevin,
And they eat the seeds and then they poop them out.
they're going to poop it out, right? Because they ate it. They don't want the seeds in their body either. And so sometimes the ripe fruit just falls the seeds to the ground. Sometimes animals eat up the cherries and their droppings are going to leave the seeds in random places, right? That is when it can germinate in the soil. It's why sometimes, occasionally, there might be kind of a random cherry tree that grows somewhere unexpected because an animal would have left that seed there. Capiche?
Hopefully my dog didn't.
So the pollination process happened in these couple steps here. Can someone summarize?
It can't grow.
Oh my. Can someone summarize that pollination process for me? Who gathered the pollen? How did the pollen get to the flowering tree? And what happened because of the pollen? Keegan. Ooh, so I'm going to say first step, bees collect pollen. Would you guys agree with that? And I'm taking what you said, Keegan, and I'm just putting it in shorter words for us. Bees collect pollen. And does that mean that they're going like door to door and they're like, oh, please, sir, can I have some pollen?
No.
Oh, hey, neighbor bee, do you have some pollen for me? No. How do bees get the pollen? Who can tell me? How do they get the pollen? Skylar.
They get the pollen from the flowers growing.
Yeah, so they collect pollen from flowers. And we're gonna make that nice and short and sweet. There's my little flower for you. From flowers. Bees collect pollen from flowers. You have all that, Jade? From flowers? He's totally right. After they get all this pollen collected, side note, it's not like they like scoop it up. It actually sticks to the hairs on their legs and on their bodies, the fuzzies on them.
Yeah.
And so when they land on a flower, it just sticks to them from one flower,
It's
and then
kinda
they
like a
move to another
magnet.
flower, and they kind of drop some off and
It's like a magnet.
collect some more.
Is it like a magnet?
It's more like the Velcro dots on the carpet, how they just kind of cling to things, or like how if you guys go roll around in the grass, sometimes the grass will kind of cling to your sweaters and your hair. It's more similar to that.
River got a stick in her hair.
Yeah. All right, what happens next? Bees collect pollen. Then what? Landon? You bet. Oh, friends, I can't hear Landon's question. We are not planting seeds today, but we will check out our seeds.
Oh, they're big.
What's next? Rylan.
The flowers drop seeds from when they are grown up.
I'm going to actually kind of flip that a little bit. They collect pollen from sunflowers, and then they bring pollen to
Another.
other flowers, right? They bring... Right now, all of us are writing these down in our workbooks. We're all going to do it all together. So you need to have patience and land your tush in your seat, dude. All right, they collect pollen from some flowers, and then they drop it off at another. And what starts to grow? What starts to happen when they bring it to another flower? Riley. Specifically, what starts to grow? If you read the section with the bees hovering on the flowers, it says they carry pollen to eggs in an adult tree and
Cherries grow.
seeds form.
And then when the seeds form, doesn't it?
And that, third grade, that's the whole pollination part. Because after that, it's the plant taking over and the fruit forming and then it falling and continuing the life cycle. But this part is the pollination part. Now, my last question for you before we move on to check our seeds
What about 8?
is, what is the role that fruit plays in a plant life cycle? Why does the fruit form around the seed?
I didn't get this.
Why is it important? Not all seeds have it, but in this particular, like in a cherry tree, why do you suppose it forms fruit around the seed? Go get some sanitizer, Chica. Connor, what do you think?
So when
There's sanitizer right there on the door. No, it's right there. It's on. He filled it. Back up.
Yeah, do you think that the animals would want to eat it if the fruit wasn't there?
No.
Probably not, right? Probably not these ones. So maybe one thing is animals want to eat the fruit.
can't.
Oh, sorry.
I didn't-
Animals
I didn't get it because it said play. What?
want to eat it. And then also think about if there were just seeds in the flowers and the flowers never turned to cherries wrapped around that seed, what would probably happen?
I think if it didn't have any fruit, animals just eat it like we said. So no one would be able to eat it, and it would just be a seed that would just drop on the ground, like a pine cone.
Go ahead, nurse.
Like a pine cone.
Oh, so maybe it would be more like a cone tree. That differs it from cone trees by letting it have fruit. I'm gonna say that fruit also kind of protects the seed and lets it grow longer, right? So maybe let's add
And animals would
protects.
starve. Animals would starve.
Well, they would probably find some other things to eat. But go ahead and finish jotting down your notes for number 7, and then we're going to go check out our seeds.
What about 8?
Alrighty, check it out.
Yeah, she was tipping her chair. And everybody was
Well,
laughing.
hello, Weeks. Let's try again. Check it out.
Check it out! Check it out! Check it out!
I'm looking for a scientist. Oh my. Looking for a scientist to kind of describe what you noticed between my dry beans and my beans that had water. Olivia?
The ones with the wet paper towel were quite bigger than the ones with the dry ones.
They're like almost double the size. Do you guys see that?
why.
They're almost double. So let's record that in our chart. This is officially day 2. If you flip back, this is day 2 on page 130. This is Friday. 130 in your workbook.
You just have to flip backwards.
Yep. So day 2, seeds with water. Here's a shortcut for you guys. Instead of having to write that phrase again, you can put little quotation marks and it just means same thing. Equal, double the size.
You said it in a weird voice.
Like slow motion.
Are you jotting this down, Rylan?
Well, I already jot something.